Is the Binize car stereo. This car stereo is going to be just a plug and play. It comes with all of the wiring harness that we're going to need for the install. I'll show you how to install that. It even comes with a tool to undo your trim and a little star screwdriver. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is take the plastic cover off. In order to take those plastic cover off, those go underneath this piece of trim. So we're going to use the tool that we're going to have to start popping this probably onto the outside of the trim first and move her away towards the center. For this, I'm probably going to have to open my door here. Just pass your tool along and keep prying. You don't want to pry too hard without passing the tool along because it's going to break the trim. So you want to make sure that you pop all of those. Now that we have this off, we're going to be able to start removing the trims for our car stereo. So this car stereo for this particular vehicle comes with the molded vent on each side. So we have to take the vent cover as well. So we're going to take those out first. Hearing the popping like this is normal. Don't worry about it. This is just the clips actually coming out. Now there's two sides of those tools, a smaller side and a bigger side. So you have to use whatever one side that fits the best. So here's the clip for your vent cover. We're going to keep everything up here. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. A little bit harder to do this side. There you go. I got it. So you have to go right in here in order to pop this clip out of here. And it pulled the whole thing. It didn't just pull the outside cover for this one. It actually pulled everything out. This one on the other side, it stayed in. Now we have access to our stereo. Now usually stereo will have a couple little screws that hold everything together. One on each side of the stereo. Those are 10 millimeter socket.
Stay focused on it.
Okay, so we remove our two 10 mil bolt out of the bottom of the bracket. Now, underneath this unit, we have two more bolts here that we have to remove. So in order to remove this assembly, we have to grab our needle nose pliers. And then you see those two yellow tabs here. We have to grab those with the needle nose plier, push them together to release the lock. And then we're going to grab the tool that came with our radio, the nice wide side of it. We're going to put it at the top and just bring it underneath and pull gently, and it's going to release this side. We're going to do the same thing with the other side, like this. And pull again, just like so. Now I can remove this unit, just flip it upside down on the dash. We're going to unplug it for now. Now we have access to our two bolts at the top. We're just going to remove those. We might need the bracket for the So now you see those two brackets, this one here and the top one over here. And this is the same thing about the one on the other side here. So we're going to grab our little tool that came with the radio again and try to fit it in here. Just give it a pull. This one was a little bit easier than expected. Okay, so now the stereo cannot come out really to have access to unplug everything because the cables are all twisted in here. So now I have to put my end and then release the pressure of the cable that goes in the back of the bracket. Push the cable like this, and now you see that twist here. That's why we can take our radio out. Now we have access to all of those connections. Okay, now to disconnect those plugs, there's the little lock mechanism from the top that you push down, and it releases the lock. Push it down, and then you just pull them. They're all like this. Sometimes some of them might be a little bit harder to disconnect, so you push it, and then you wiggle it, and you'll be able to do it. This one first here. Some of them have the lock at the bottom. Some of them have the lock at the top. You just have to figure out where your lock is, but they all have little locks so that they don't come loose. Sometimes if it gets too hard, you can always use a needle nose plier and just grab your plug and then push it like this. And then it's easier to have a good grip on the lock to keep it compressed. Okay. Now we have our OEM radio out or ready for the new install. So this is our OEM radio, and as you can see, the back of it is really bulky, just like any older style radio. It used to slide into in between bracket and be all bolted down. And this is what your new radio is going to look like. And this is actually a low profile radio, so everything is actually inside this controller. Here you have your fan to keep it cold, and all of the plug that's supposed to plug in into this assembly are right here. And on top here, we're going to have, you know, those little bracket with the yellow bits that we were unclipping earlier. Well, we have new brackets like this that actually screw into here, and then we can just slide everything and clip it here, and we don't need all this big metal bulky assembly. We have to put clips in the back of this low profile stereo too. So now make sure you know which side is the top. As you can see here, you'll have your power button at the top. We're going to use that styrofoam that came in with the box and the stereo to protect our screen when we're putting it upside down. At the top of the stereo, there's the plug, as you can see. So you're gonna have 4 brackets in total, and you should have 8 screws. Now, as you can see, those brackets, they do not have the little plastic yellow clip as the OEM stereo have. So we're going to have to reuse those clips, and you can have 2 smaller brackets like this with a smaller base and the 4 holes lined up. This is for the top of your stereo. And you're going to have 2 brackets like this with the opposite size of holes on them, because there's a left and a right on them. You just have to remember that the small hole is to line up with those little nubbies that are sticking out of the bracket. The screwdriver that Binize give you into the assembly box is actually for this part. And now we can start our screws. It'd be easier to grab the bracket for your first screw, put the screw through it. Now that part is a little bit hard if you have big fat finger. Now we just have to reuse those little yellow clips and put them on the bracket of the new stereo here. They hook up into the bracket with the center piece here. There's two little lock on each side, so they need to get pry open like this in order to remove them from your OEM bracket. And this is the way that you're going to have to do this. We're going to grab our small screwdriver and a pair of needle nose pliers. We're going to go underneath our bracket with our screwdriver here, pull the bottom of the bracket out, grab it with our needle nose plier like this. We're going to switch hand here, and then we're going to grab the screwdriver and go on the other side of the bracket and pry open this little lock. And now we're unlocked and we can install this onto our new bracket. You can use the tool that came with it and use one of the corner and then pull your bracket like this, and then still use your needle nose pliers. If you're having too much trouble removing those brackets here or those clips, what you can do is either unbolt all of those screws out of there so you can remove that metal bracket out of your way, and then undo the 3 screws. There's one underneath this bracket here and one more screw. So 3 screws that hold this assembly together, and then you can remove it. Then you'll have more room to take those clips out. Okay, so as you can see with the new radio, the plugs are not the same as the plug that came in the car. So here's some adapters that came in some of the bag here. We have 3 bags of wires. So the one that we need is the one that have the same kind of plug in the car. And then on the other side, we'll have the plug to connect to your radio. So we're gonna start connecting those plugs together. Now you just have to look at where the locks are and which plug and what the size of pins that are in here. There's some smaller one and some bigger one. So you want to try to match all of this. Okay, so the first wire we're going to have is going to be our single wire. It connects to this gray wire here. As you can see, this is a square connector inside. So now you're going to see a little groove in here, and this is where the lock's going to fit. So if you line this up with your lock, it should fit perfectly together. And then we're just going to go through all of our connectors. So you just have to look at what's inside and see what kind of connection goes with which connector. So that's the circle plug here. It'll go with this connector. And again, just the size of the tab will tell you if it's a connector with the big tabs like this, or if it's a connector with small tabs. Now the color of wires don't match what the OEM car have, so don't go with this. Just go with what kind of plugs you're having here. We're not going to use every single plug because some of them are for some other accessories that this radio is going to use our own accessories. So now we just have those 2 other plug. This plug here that we have loose, the black one, is actually for this unit that we disconnected to give more room for the radio earlier. So we just have those 2 connectors to connect now. Now they're different size. So see this one here, for example, is too small for this plug, while this one is wider. So you can't really like plug and play. You cannot screw this up. And for those 2 with the wider small tabs, those one here on this plug, it shows that there's a lock that goes on the outside of it. but there's actually none on the OEM plug. So what you have to do is actually turn them upside down, and this is how they fit into your harness to connect. Now it still connects and it's still locked, but it doesn't use any of the outside tabs. If you try to connect it with the lock line up, it won't fit. At the end of your harness, you're going to see the white plug here. This white plug plugs into this box, some kind of a receiver of some sort, like this. And then we're going to open our next bag. In our next bag, we have some plugs for USB-A plugs, which plugs in the back of the radio here. And we have a connector harness. This harness will plug into the back of your radio here, and this is what transfer all of the power that we connected to those adapter harness. They will plug in here. So you just have to go and match what it says and connect it to what it is on this harness. So for example, this is a red wire. It says auxiliary in right. So we want to look for auxiliary right in, and this connects together like this. Push them all the way. Our next wire is white. It's auxiliary white, auxiliary. Connect this together. And we just have to go. This is the antenna here that'll connect straight into your radio. If you have a backup camera already installed on your vehicle from factory, then it's gonna work with the stereo. And the wire that you need is actually connected at the end, the last plug here, with those two little dead wire going. At the other end of the yellow wire, the only one that plug actually use, this is where you're gonna connect the feed for your backup camera. And for your USB cable, because it's easier to mirror your phone with this, or you're going to connect your USB cable into the second plug into the back of your radio. The other wires here, this is for extra thing like subwoofers and other things like this, or video out if you would have another screen of some sort. So you don't need to connect any of those one. In the other bag, this is what you're going to have. You're going to have your camera to mount in the back of your car. There's airbag in this, so I don't think you should start removing trims here. You should run that underneath your carpet or into your center console all the way to the back if you're going to connect the camera. On this model of car, there's already a camera built in, so we're just hooking straight to the back, but this would be your video in. So for your camera, you would need to connect the yellow wire into this harness, and then you're going to have the red wire connected to your adapter like so. And then out of the adapter, you have a black cable that will connect to a ground into your tail light, and then the red wire will connect into your backup light to power up your camera when you're backing up. Now this little box, this is your GPS. Your GPS will screw into this plug here. The GPS signal can go through plastic, so you can pretty much put it anywhere inside your dash as long as it's not underneath a metal bracket. It comes with double-sided tape, so you can stick it inside the dash or on top of the dash. So all of your plugs are pretty much self-explanatory because they only fit at one spot. Your antenna connects here. You have your main power with your main harness that connects on the side of the radio, and your GPS adapter. Now we're going to have to connect our microphone And our microphone, we're gonna have to put it right here above the steering wheel. So we're going to have to take this bracket off first. So now you can just put your end in here and just give it a good pull, and that will give you enough space to pass your wire into the back and out of here. So now that we have the microphone hooked up right in here, I just tested it by doing a phone call. It works great. So our wires coming out here now, and this connects to one of the plug coming out here. This is the microphone plug. To reconnect your stereo, you just have to push those clips into those holes here, and then they will pop into place and stay there. But before we install the radio, we have to install our vents. Now our vents don't fit with the whole cover, so we have to remove the cover. There's 4 clips around. You just have to pry those open, and then you're going to be able to release the face of the cover. Now we can reconnect our vent in the back of the radio bracket, and we're ready to put the stereo in. As you're putting the stereo in, make sure that you're trying to line up your wires so that they don't get pinched anywhere or kink. And keep bringing the stereo in. You can bring it very close to the clips, but don't clip it in all the way. Now we can grab the unit with the 4-way flasher and the time and clip that part in, just like so. Okay, so our trim won't fit right here like that's on top of the stereo, and if we put it before we put the stereo, then it still won't fit because this is gonna try to go above the trim. So what we have to do, we have to pull the stereo in a little bit, out a little bit, put the trim partially in, and then push everything, the trim and the stereo, back together, and then now it's perfect fit. Now we can